Pleasant good afternoon to the international media that is present today. A special good afternoon to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago who is live on TikTok and Facebook on my page right now. I am political leader Nickocy Phillips, the Unity of the People, and this is my first press conference since the year began, and I have come to address a number of issues that I have been silent on, and that is because, I wanted to stay out of the media to take a step back to see, what is going on and to get ready for um, the new world and the new beginning for 2025. So, first of all, let me say Happy New Year to Trinidad and Tobago and to everyone. We'll have a list of topics as to the conversations this afternoon for this press conference. And first of all, I will start off with to thanking the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley. I saw last year or during the year, the beginning of the year, he would have putting his papers in a conference, or he would have said that he will be stepping down as prime minister and to spend time with his family and stuff. And I saw the big hullabaloo with who is going to take his position. But let me just say this as a professional and as a citizen of this country and as a young leader. I would like to say thank you to the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, for his service to Trinidad and Tobago and his service to me as a citizen, as a young person. And he is one of my role models and role models I could see because for the 4 years that I've started the politics, I literally was learning about all my political opponents, learning how they move, how they act, how they respond. And he was one of my, how to say, background mentors that I wanted to, pull some of his attributes to becoming a leader and to becoming even better. And I would like to say a special thanks to him. I know people have mixed reactions, but as a professional, I would like to say thank you to the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, for his service to Trinidad and Tobago. And despite the negativity of some may say his failure to run the country or the good that he has done, to me, he has done enough. He has done what he has done for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. He could have just gone and done his business. He could have gone back to his farm and forget about the country, but he would have stand the sacrifice for his family and everything to be in the public space day after day, taking lash after lash. And I'd like to say thank you to him, to his service. And I hope just before he comes out of office, after 10 times I've written his office to meet with him, I would have that opportunity to meet with him, to give him my expressive thanks. And I hope he gets this message. So I want to move further along now to the state of emergency and issues that we are facing with the state of emergency. And I won't go too in length with the state of emergency because we have heard the discussions, we've heard the debate in Parliament, we have heard that with the debate, they also had the majority to have the extension for a further 3 months. So I don't want to have personal beliefs in or opinions, but however, I can provide an analysis based on the available information that I would have researched on some of the things that I have a problem with in the state of emergency. We have seen that the government's failure to control the high escalated crime rate of maybe 600 and something murders from last year and following the previous years, notwithstanding past years of a two-term reign, has caused them now to use the state of emergency in the response to controlling the crime rates, so they say, particularly if it provides law enforcement with enhanced powers to address urgent threats. However, such measures can also raise concerns about civil liberties, long-term effectiveness, and potential use of abuse of power. It's crucial to evaluate whether the state of emergency is a temporary fix or part of an extensive sustainable strategy to address the crime situation, which we have not seen the parliamentarians debate, which we have seen the parliamentarians debate in full, but both the government and opposition, with me having the majority, the government still wanted got an extension, but for me, I am not comfortable yet with this state of emergency because it does not really deal with the issue of crime. Because what happens after the extension of 3 months? Will we see an escalation of the crime because we have the criminals on a leash right now because of the state of emergency? But what happens after the 6 months period or the 3 months extension that we have? So I want to draw our attention to one of the debates that literally struck me in the parliament when they were discussing the state of emergency. And one of the things that sparked my attention in the parliament was the Minister Saddam Hussein contribution when he raised the issue and concerns about existing law and versus state of emergency law. Now, I'm not fully into the law, but I think I'm advised enough or I can research enough to say what I want to say. And he said, I want to read this out properly. He said, and he read out Regulations 8. Right? Regulations 8 says, subject to the provisions of Regulations 11, any person who without lawful authority, the burden of proof as to lawful authority laying upon him, right? Laying upon him, purchases or acquires or has in his possession any firearm, ammunition, or explosive is guilty of an offense. But the existing law already makes a person in possession is committing a criminal act and is clear in Section 6 of the regulations. Talk about the higher penalty in existing legislations for the Firearms Act and emergency powers. So to me, this whole state of emergency was just a distraction to what's going on in the PNM for the fight for power. And they talk about distraction and more traction to the party screening more than crime. So because we're seeing a state of emergency, and the media houses are more involved on showing on the media the political parties, both UNC and PNM, they're screening the candidates who make it and who don't make it. And we are not seeing the media houses pressing the government of Trinidad and Tobago as to the issues that we're facing in terms of the abuse of power by a police officer that some persons claim. We're seeing some criminals have been murdered. We're not seeing pressing questions to continue pushing the state of emergency, but we're seeing news after news, PNM, UNC screening, PNM, UNC screening, PNM screening, and we're not getting enough information on the state of emergency. So to me, I think this state of emergency was just a distraction and just a way for them not to control or can't control the crime situation, and they're just using this as a tactic. So the Minister Saddam Hussein was very clear. There's existing laws, and there is the versus the state of emergency laws, right? So let's look at the Anti-Gang Act that the PNM fought so hard for, and they got the UNC support. And my question is, why isn't the Anti-Gang Act being used? Because we're seeing in Parliament from since the 2 terms in office, we have been seeing the Minister of National Security using that as a tactic for saying that there's over 250-something gangs in Trinidad and about 30-something or 50-something in Trinidad, in Tobago. But if you have an Anti-Gang Act legislation and it was passed, why aren't you using the Anti-Gang Act to arrest the criminal based on the so-called intelligence you all have and the intelligence gathering information that you all have? Why isn't that being used to arrest these so-called gang leaders that you have? Because the Anti-Gang Act is very clear. In Section 16 of the Anti-Gang Act of 2002, it allows a police officer without warrant to detain a gang leader or member without warrant for up to 48 hours with reasonable cause to believe a person is committing or has committed or is believed to be about committing an offense. So therefore, there is no new power, and if that officer needs an extension to detaining that individual, they can ask for an extension by a judge for up to 7 days or more, I think. So we have an anti-gang act, we have the existing law, and if you look at the existing law, the fines and penalties are way more than the state of emergency powers and law. So why would you use the state of emergency laws to have a hold on the criminals when they're getting off? Because they've been detained and then they go out on bail. And then again, you continue to see the same offenses, whereby if you use the existing law, they are charged and fined up to 10 to 12 years because they have been found with a weapon or committed a criminal offense or something of the sort. So I don't understand. There is something that is not right. And as I said, I've heard the debate in Parliament, but it is not all going well with the community and the society, because let's make it make sense. If you have an anti-gang legislation to lock up gang, you have the so-called intelligence that you know all the gang leaders. Notwithstanding, we had Christmas lists came into the country and identified, video recorded, went into the places that our so-called police can't even go to identify the gang leaders and spoke to them. But yet, you as a government cannot use that anti-gang legislation to arrest none of these gang members or leaders. Something is beside the mortar and the pestle. I talked about the gang and the 250 gangs and no one being arrested, and I have to ask the question again, why? Now, the first duty of any government is to keep the citizens safe, but the government of Trinidad and Tobago has failed our citizens miserably in regards to the protection of its citizens against any criminal activity. And one of the things that struck my attention in the Daily Express, dated Tuesday, the 21st of January, 2025. So in this article that you're seeing here, this article, it says, Hines signs a detention order for Tyson. And this person is the suspect, Calvin Tyson Lee, and who is said to be the leader of the 6th gang, right? The notice has stated that Lee has been credibly identified as the leader of a known criminal organization known as the 6th gang, and as a person planning and intending to execute violent retaliatory reprisals or other violent actions involving the use of high-powered weapons and explosives, following an attempted hit on his life and the murder of his associate, Trevor Williams, which is supposed to be his bodyguard, on the 28th of December, 2024, which struck this state of emergency because there was a retaliation of 5 persons being executed up in that same area. So Lee, which is Tyson Lee, which is the 6th gang leader, was previously under house arrest since he was released from police custody on January 4th. He had been detained on December 30th, 2024, following the killings of 6 people in Port of Spain division over a 24-hour period. So during a press conference on January 8th, Assistant Commissioner of Police Richard Smith told the media that Lee was under house arrest in keeping with the regulations of a state of emergency. So we have an anti-gang legislation or bill that gives you the authority to arrest a gang leader if he's known to do criminal activities or being involved in criminal activities or is a part of criminal activities in the conduct of being a leader and stuff. You have it in your papers, in your words. The minister said, the commissioner of police said in their words, they have identified and credibly identified him as a leader and have information that he was going to execute violent retaliatory reprisals and other violent actions involving the use of high-powered weapons and explosives. How is this person under house arrest? And it comes like if they are being protected by the state and the police service. Let's do the maths. Let's do the maths. Something is not right in this country. Because if that is so, then we might as well protect all the gang leaders and put them out of house, under house arrest, and then we will say, let the right-thinking citizens become the criminals. Because if you are protecting the criminals and the gang leaders, what was the purpose of the anti-gang bill, and what was the purpose of you forcing the hand of the UNC and this public to believing that the anti-gang bill will work to lock up the so-called identified 250 gang leaders that you all are aware of, and you have so-called intelligence to do? Let's make it make sense. So, as a young political leader, what I've observed is that other political leaders use their ability to continue to bring down an organization, bring down the government in regards to everything that they do. But I would have come up with some suggestions for fighting crime in Trinidad and Tobago. So we'll have to look at community policing, strengthening community policing initiatives to build trust between law enforcement and communities, encouraging residents to report crimes and to collaborate with the police. And when I say this, we have the joint patrols that we say, sometimes we see in videos now where they're saying police have abused their authority. Where is the strengthening of the community police now to come behind all of this and the negative on social media, to go back into that community and foster that relationship, to continue to build the trust? Because now you've seen videos of police abusing authority, persons burning tires and stuff and whatever. This is where the community policing coming in, so they can go into the community and see how best they can, calm that community down, try to build back the trust, and let's work with them so they can encourage the residents to report crimes and to collaborate with the police. It is not happening. Investing in youth programs. Developing programs focused on education, sports, and vocational training for at-risk youth to deter them from engaging in criminal activities. We are seeing the activities, we are hearing the ministers talking about events for the young people, but is it reaching our young people? Is it reaching the right-thinking young people? Is it reaching the young boy or the young girl on the streets who are involved in the gangs? What do we do? Are we going to just sit behind a camera, sit behind a platform and say, yes, we have put activities for young people, but we have to look at when these young people are accessing certain things, they are not getting the support. When they go to an office, well, they have to go back and get this paper, that paper, that paper. So when they have that sort of negativity, they don't want to come back to an office. They will find a gang leader who will pull them in and say, hey, look at ball of the bat, go and play on the road, or do this, or have look at gun, go and play with that gun. We need to use these youth programs wisely in each community center. We need to go around and do caravans and do community work, and let the work also filter through the community policing service. We need to strengthen law enforcement resources, providing law enforcement agencies with adequate training, technology, and funding to effectively combat crime. We have to put also gun control measures, implementing stricter regulations on firearm possession and enhancing enforcement efforts against illegal firearms. No, we have those enforcement, we have the regulations. But what does the regulation, as I continue to say, what does the regulations do when somebody who has a gun calls a lawyer, is arrested, calls a lawyer, before 24 hours, that person who is caught with the firearm is released on bail, continues to do the act again, continue to use a firearm again, get caught again, but back on bail. But a young man who has a stick of marijuana or is in the possession of just a little short bit of marijuana, you are arresting that person and putting that person in jail for so many years because the matter keeps on going on and on and on, and it affects their ability to now be a part of the hardcore criminals when their matter could have just been dealt with immediately. But you're having persons committing gun crimes being off on bail. Now we have data-driven approaches, utilizing data analytics to identify crime hotspots and to allocate police resources more effectively, but still we know where the hotspots are and who are the leaders, and yet we are not arresting them. So what is the purpose of bringing up that you are aware of the gang leaders, you are aware of the hotspots, but yet the same police officers can't go there? Imagine it took a tourist, a blogger, to come all the way from Canada to go into the gang spots and the hotspots easily. But yet our own police officers that the Prime Minister said had to be locked up in fear each night and turn off the lights because they're in fear for their life. I don't understand. So what is the purpose of the police officers? So it's best the citizens use the criminals as their protection in society, because if the Prime Minister can say that his officers have to turn off the light at night in fear of their life or whatever he said, that means that we do not have an effective police service in Trinidad and Tobago. We are talking about public awareness. Since the state of emergency, we have a communication minister. How much times have we seen the communication minister come to the public to keep us updated as to the state of emergency, the effectiveness of the state of emergency, what we should do if the regulations have changed, if it has updated? None of that has been done. Educating the public about crime prevention strategies and encouraging community involvement in safety initiatives. Are we seeing that happening? No. Where is the communication minister? Quick behind putting political party in engaging in the screening. That is what we're seeing. We're not seeing the communication minister is supposed to be the minister that communicates his government's work to the media and to the people of Trinidad and Tobago so we can be aware of what is happening in the country. And that is not being done. Now, when I'm on the matter of national security, I want to look at the issues of here in Tobago. The police service in Tobago are still short of having the necessary tools and equipments to work and to put the work together by operating effectively in the fight against crime and criminal activities. There's a vehicle shortage. And when you talk about vehicle shortage, if you go to the Grange police station, I check, I think maybe 20 to 30 police vehicles which have been mashed up or destroyed. And I'm asking the question, don't the police station, why isn't the Minister of National Security, or I know they had them cut, why isn't it that we have, the government of Trinidad and Tobago have its own mechanic shop to fix these vehicles instead of having them parked up there, and every time we have to get allocation in the budget every year to have new police vehicles. So when a crime is committed, the officers will say, we don't have any vehicles right now, but all the vehicles are parked up. Some of them just need little changes or little addition to them, but we have all the vehicles there parked up. That is something that we have to look at, and it's something that if under my leadership, we will have an effective mechanic shop to fix all vehicles. Notwithstanding that, we have to hold these police officers accountable for the neglect of the vehicles, because some of them use it for their family life and their purposes and destroy the vehicle, get into accident. Isn't the vehicles insured? Isn't the government of Trinidad and Tobago insuring the vehicles so that we know that if a vehicle gets into an accident, whether by their doing or not, the vehicle has to be insured. So you're telling me that these vehicles that have been parked up because they are damaged or in an accident, they have no insurance and they're on the public road? That is a question, again, I need to answer by the Minister of National Security. Now, there are 2 police boats parked up at the Buku Integrated Facility. When we had triathlon in Buku, we saw the police in these boats protecting the tourists that come in with the sporting athletes all around. That was good, no problem. But the boats, right after they leave, the boats are parked up over 3 to 5 years now in the Buku Integrated Facility with engine. And yet we, the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly and the Minister of National Security, they are fighting back to back to say that, oh yes, we have no vessel. The Chief Secretary has to go rent pirogues to allow the Coast Guard and police to go monitor the Tobago shores. That is the most nonsensical thing I've ever heard in my life. Why isn't it that those 2 boats can be utilized by the police and Coast Guard in the meantime to cover the shores of Buku, Lambo, and all these there? Now we have the whole of Tobago open, no boats, no Coast Guard vessels, right? So what is the purpose of these 2 boats that are parked up there when it could be used to command our shores or to make sure that we are safe? But it is good for when the athletes and international persons come, we use the boats to protect them, but we cannot protect our own citizens here in Tobago. The Coast Guard vessels for Tobago, where are they? Do we have enough? When will they arrive, and how many vessels does the Tobago Coast Guard have? Is it enough to secure the borders of Tobago? Is it efficient? No, it is not efficient. Because you look at the Coast Guard vessels and they're lacking none. Sometimes when you call and a fisherman is lost in the sea, just recently we had the same issue. There is no vessel. When you call the Coast Guard base, there is no vessel, or they will have to commandeer one of the citizens' vessels to go out and to look. Let's make it make sense. But yet every year, the Minister of National Security is getting a very high allocation to the budget, and we're not seeing the money being spent. We talk about cameras, we talk about jail jammers, but yet we are seeing videos of prisoners fighting in prison. We are seeing videos of prisoners eating KFC and wearing big brands in the prison. And we're seeing that shots have been called on the prison officers from in the prison, but yet the Minister of National Security is saying that we want allocation to buy cell phone jammers in the prison, and it is working, but yet we're still getting shots called on prison officers. Just recently, prison officers' house have been shut up. Where are the jammers for this? And where is the money going? If it's every year we're taking allocation for cameras, why aren't the police officers wearing these body cameras? Right? Why aren't they wearing the body cameras? Something is not wrong. But yet citizens in this country, they're quiet, they're ready to run. Yes, we're red and ready, we're yellow and ready, and we're ready to go behind it, but you're not looking at the issues that are facing our country. Look at the Coast Guard base in Tobago. It's in a horrible condition. Look at the Army base. We heard the Chief Secretary saying that they're going to do works on it. Have the works started? We're not seeing the Minister of National Security. We need to fix a proper Coast Guard base. Look at the condition of the Coast Guard base right around the corner in Scarborough. When anybody come, any international person come and see that nonsense that they have there, you expect them to believe that is a Coast Guard base? That is what you're giving the Coast Guard and the persons in national security to actually work with? Some of my initiatives for the justice system, right? I want to look at as I said, I am a political leader, I'm young, and I prefer to give solutions and also add to the issue by putting proper solutions. And we're looking at initiatives for the justice system. Now, if I were in the position of influence, if I were in the position to influence policy as a Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and the head of National Security Council, some initiatives that I will immediately put is judicial reform. Streamlining court processes to reduce case backlogs and increase efficiency in the legal system. Now, when you say judicial reform, we really need judicial reform to the highest, because COVID finished since 2022 or 2021 or when it stopped. But the Scarborough Magistrate Court, when you go to the Scarborough Magistrate Court, right now, if you go there Monday, when you go to see the Justice of the Peace, you have to stand up outside, pick up the phone to talk to the Justice of the Peace. You can't go in the building. You have to stand up outside in the hot sun. In this 2025, from since then to now, you telling me that the Scarborough Magistrate Court cannot return to its normal proceedings and we can have these cases going out one after the next? We only have the online. Yes, we could utilize the online for some cases. We could also use the court system. It's not happening. What is happening to the Scarborough Magistrate Court? Attorney General, when will the courthouse in Tobago be open? When will the Scarborough Magistrate Court have an upgrade? Because that condition of a Scarborough Magistrate Court, I am asking myself, what is the government, or what has the government of Trinidad and Tobago in its 9 years or 9 terms, or its 2 terms in office, done for the development of the justice system? Because you're seeing bandits coming and getting off easily, so we really do need a judicial reformation. We're looking at strengthening witness protection, enhancing support for witness protection, or witness to encourage to provide them with evidence without fear or retaliation. You cannot I have not seen an effective witness protection program in Trinidad and Tobago, because we've seen over the years while this government has been in power, that mostly all the state witnesses have been executed. Why? Because there isn't a proper state witness protection program that can efficiently work to protect our citizens. Hence the reason the citizens will not come forward with information because they have no protection. Because anywhere you go into Tobago, you're going to get shot. Trinidad, you're going to get shot the same way. So if you don't have a proper protective system in place for our citizens, how you expect to gather information or for the citizens to work? For me, at this point in time, when with that kind of thing happening, I would tell them, you see something, don't say nothing. Because at the end of the time, when they say something, you wouldn't make it. And I would tell them that unless there is an effective program to protect our citizens. Now, we talk about increased funding for legal aid. Ensuring that the adequate legal representation is available for all, which can help to balance the scales of justice. When I say legal aid, we also cannot force on the legal aid system. We're looking at our judicial system, and this is why, hence the reason why I said we need a judicial reformation. You realize that the criminals who have been caught committing a crime or offense by killing or by shooting or a big drug bust, they're getting the big lawyers. And these are the same lawyers that is used by the government of Trinidad and Tobago to do legal battles for the government or on behalf of the government. These are the same lawyers that are used by the opposition to get these criminals off. But a young man who has in his possession a little marijuana, a little bag, a little stick, is in prison fighting just to get somebody to represent him, to him to get out. But yet, the hardcore criminals are getting these so-called lawyers who are working for the government on opposition or themselves or the state and are not representing the little small man who could get off with a small stick of marijuana. Let's make it make sense. We have to look at incorporation of technology, implementing e-file systems that will work efficiently. We have to look at collaboration with international agencies, which we've seen happening, but the international collaboration and partnership that we see with practices against transnational crime or drug trafficking, is it working effectively? Is it that we're getting the gadgets and not the training? Because apparently we're only accepting gadgets from the US. From China, we're accepting gadgets, we're accepting tents, we're accepting cameras. But is the police officers getting the necessary training? Because if the police officer, the commissioner of police said, Ms. Erla Christopher said that her officers sometimes refuse to put on the camera. If you are the commissioner of police and your officers are being instructed by you to wear the body cameras and they're telling you no, well, you should be fired immediately. You should be fired immediately, effectively, because if you can't command your officers, which you are the head in command of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and you can't command your officers to even put on a simple body camera, which protects them as an officer and will protect the citizens, because we'll know that if is any injustice, then why are you the commissioner of police again? We need to focus on rehabilitation, which is prioritization of the rehabilitation over incarceration for non-violent offenders to reduce recidivism rates and to reintegrate individuals into society. As I said, small little marijuana, you end up in the big hardcore prisons. Now you meet the big hardcore criminals. When they come out, they are big hardcore gang leaders or foot soldiers for the gang leaders, right? So I'm narrowing it down. Constitutional reform is definitely needed in this country, right? It needs to restart the country's growth and stabilization to evolving from a third world status to a first world status. But that cannot happen unless the people accept change, the people allow change to take its process, and they want to be a part of the change. We cannot go to a first world status with the mentality that we have, that things are happening in society, but yet your focus is on how somebody look, how somebody dress. Welcome. It doesn't make sense. Let's make it make sense. You guys hear me clearly? So let me narrow it down. So these initiatives that I've mentioned require careful consideration, clear communication, and collaboration between various sectors of society, including government, law enforcement officers, and I keep on saying the question, if I was the Prime Minister of this country, one of the things that I would effectively do is when I'm doing anything that has to do with the protection of our citizens, is to involve the opposition and all political leaders around the country of Trinidad and Tobago, because effectively, crime is not an issue for the government to solve, nor the opposition. It is an issue for all political leaders who speak for different voices in society to come on a roundtable discussion and discuss on a way to fight the crime and moving forward. Because when the government comes with a plan, the opposition oppose. Then we have the outside politicians who continue to oppose the same thing as well. If you were an effective Prime Minister, why not call a roundtable discussion and have there are certain things that at the head of national security you will not be able to do or say with all political leaders present, but at the end of the day, there are ways to have them silent. You sign a memorandum of understanding that any discussion in this roundtable within all the political leaders on matters of crime and criminal activities and the way of how to fight crime, nobody shall leave this room to go and have a press conference and say, oh, they say this, they discuss this, they discuss that. And effectively, I have never seen a police come on a police unit, America, Caribbean, anyway, come on the TV and tell them, okay, we're going to have a roadblock here, we're going to have a search warrant there, we're going to search this. Now, I had to ask myself, is it that we have Trinidad and Tobago Police Service or we have something resembling a police? Because if you could come and tell the criminals, well, we're going to search here tomorrow morning, we're going to do a search in this area, that means you are giving the criminals the head up to know that, okay, they're coming, so let me move the guns, let me move everything and get ready. So you are wasting time with these searches that are coming up to nothing. Now, I talked about the hardcore lawyers' defense, and I want to go. I call on the Minister of National Security already, and those are the things that I have with the issue with the state of emergency. But one of the issues that I've also had on my agenda, last year, some information came to me, and I had looked very carefully at the information. I passed on the information to get it researched and to make sure and check it, but I'm able to speak now. And I want to ask the Minister of National Security, Mr. Hines, something. Although we will not get any accountability or transparency in his investigation, but I'm also asking him to launch an investigation into your Ministry of National Security, because within the information that has come to me, allegedly, there are persons in the Ministry of National Security taking money or demanding money from specific groups of persons in society. For example, let's say the Syrians, the Chinese, or persons who are businessmen especially, who are living in the country for years, 20 years, 10 years. And in order for them to get their citizenship, they have to pay $40,000 or $80,000 for that citizenship, because they have been waiting for years. I'm asking the Minister of National Security to launch an investigation into that allegation that is forthcoming, and I'm also asking him to look into that and see what's really happening, because if the information gets into the public, it's going to be very bad for the ministry under his protection, because that is the ministry that the alleged affair came into play. So you're telling me that persons who are businessmen in this country, they have to be bribed now to pay, and a lot of them have come forward. So I'm asking the Minister of National Security, can you tell the public if that is truth, and will you launch an investigation to make sure that the information that I've just put into the public domain, if it is relevant and if it is true, and if it warrants your attention, to make sure and investigate. So I'm going to cut this very short. I talked about the state of emergency. I talked about the issue of the gangs being called out and stuff. We'll talk about Tobago issues. We've seen a lot of things happening in the Tobago space. We've seen what happened with Mr. Duke in the parliament, which I have no response to, because at the end of the day, there are greater issues in the Tobago space than Mr. Duke's issue of him being put out of parliament. And as you see today, I have a press conference here. And the most important thing to discuss, and I'm a political leader for a political party that is registered. You don't see the media houses for Trinidad and Tobago here. But we have an international media that is here to also looking and to listening on the work that I'm doing and listening on the issues because they are listening from the outside. So you have to now ask yourself the question, do we have an effective media house or effective media houses in Trinidad and Tobago? Are they paid off? And what are their purpose, or what is their purpose actually? Because if you cannot treat all political leaders and all political parties effectively and properly, what is the purpose? So now I think I will open the floor. Those are my concerns. Those are the concerns that came to me. There are concerns that deal with Tobago, and I guess I will have to address them piece by piece via social media and TikTok. I want to say to my TikTok people and social media, Facebook, thank you very much for logging in on the live. And if you all have any questions, I am now opening the floor to our international media present to ask some questions, and I will be able to answer the questions. If you have any questions on social media that you want to be answered as well, please feel free to type in your questions, and I will read your questions out, and I will answer your questions as well. So I now hand the floor open to the media journalists here present this morning.
Hi there, this is OTC from New York City. And the first question I have is, as a community leader, how do you stay connected with the concerns and interests of the residents in your district? Do you get out? What do you do?
Just repeat the question one more time.
Yes. As a community leader, how do you stay connected with the concerns and interests of the residents in Tobago in your constituency? How do you get out to them? Because you mentioned before that those are the things that need to happen. So is that what you do? How do you do it? How often do you do it?
Right, so the question was asked if I go out to the community and the constituency to effectively deal with the issues that are in the community, and how do I do it? So one of the things that I do is when an issue comes to me in a community, what I do is first contact the area representative, or if it's something to do with the road, the assemblyman for each division or whatever issue it is, I try to reach out to them. If I don't get a good response or they do not respond to me, which they do not, I will use social media and put it out on social media, and effectively they get the work done. Because as far as I see, it's only when things and issues are put on social media, then they come out and do it. And that is how this administration in Tobago, the THA, have been working so far. Whenever I come on the TV and I talk about an issue or put it on Facebook or TikTok, then the next morning you see them come out, paving the road, cutting the grass, doing something. So effectively, my strategy is to continue to use social media and TikTok, because the media houses in Tobago, as I've said, they have no respect for me. And I'm not going to fight them. I'm not going to battle them to let them or force them to come here to come and do a press conference with me. But I'm just waiting that when the election bell calls, I know that they will be reaching out for me for an interview, and they will not be getting that attention, I can tell you for sure. So effectively, what I do is to use social media to get the issues out.
It seems as though the SOE is somewhat of a quick fix, what we're hearing. A quick fix for Carnival. That's why it's there for 3 months. What do you think about that idea?
As I said, that the question is the quick fix of the SOE for Carnival. And that has come to my mind, but it also come to my mind that the government has lost control of the criminal and gangs in Trinidad and Tobago. They have lost control of securing the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. They have lost control of engaging the said authority that has to deal with protecting the safety and security of our citizens. The use of the SOEs to control the carnival, yes, that's a yes and that's a no in my case. But again, we can't understand the agenda of the government because, as I said, if you have anti-gang legislations, you have firearm regulations and a bill that could give you the power already to fight these criminal elements with firearms, with the possession of marijuana. Why do you need a state of emergency? That, as I said, that state of emergency was just a distraction for what the issues that are going on in the PNM government right now, for them to do their change and who becomes prime minister to elect and to do that. Because, as I said, you effectively said that the state of emergency is just to combat the carnival season. But that is right because imagine a state of emergency in this country, and we are seeing the media houses all over only showing PNM screening, UNC screening, PNM screening, UNC screening, and then they come and give you a little crime news, then they turn and they go back to PNM screening, they go back to our next candidate. So it does not deal with the issue of what is the actual purpose of the state of emergency. So for me, I think that question augurs well, and it also will say on my hand that it is a distraction.
The other question is, the stats say that there are approximately 250 gangs in Trinidad, and there are what's under 100 here in Tobago. It just seems as though there is some sort of understanding between the gangs and the leaders and the government, so that things are not being enforced, especially as you have the means to enforce. What are your thoughts?
And that I said, based on what I've raised today about the state of emergency and the existing law versus the law, it is true because if the gangs can get off, the gangs know when to hide. The gangs are using the same lawyers used by the government in their battles, and it's the same lawyers protecting the gang leaders. It has to be that the board, not only this government alone, but the opposition too, because the both of them were in power. And they have been, it's simple like this. When election is around, those political parties promise the gang leaders that they will give them a contract, and if you bring the boys to vote, I've seen it in Trinidad firsthand. My first election in Trinidad for the local government elections, one of me and my candidate went to drop off food or to drop food to send one of the workers to drop off food to the person who was taking stats at the election booth. And we were in the car, my car was tinted, or it was tinted but low. And there was a van that pulled up. And this man is on the phone saying, hey, listen, we pay you to come and bring the people and them and bring them because we're going to take back the money. So immediately I watched my candidate and said, but wait, you're paying people to vote? And they're telling, oh, bring all the boys and them, you know, use the leader. That is what is happening. So apparently there is a relationship. For me, I can effectively say there is a relationship with the government, opposition, and the gang leaders of this country, because effectively, if they can do what they do and get off immediately, some of them get away scotch-free. There is some sort of relation going on, but how can we break that relationship? When will this relationship break? Because it is affecting the tourism status of Trinidad and Tobago, it is affecting the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, it is affecting the social development of our young people and single mothers and single fathers in the country. So when will it end? You have now to see if we will have an effective change in leadership, and in that leadership, the person who will be there, I am running for the position, and if I'm elected, I have work to do. But effectively, that work cannot be done not just by my leadership, but it has to be done by a team. It has to be done by the people surrounding me to effectively want to have change in the government and want to effective and to lessen the corruption in Trinidad and Tobago.
Next question, which is, you spoke earlier about police and the tools that they have or don't have, vehicles, training, etc., as well as the effectiveness of the system itself. It just seems as though it's an easy fix. So when you speak about the gangs and you speak about these systems and the money that is coming through for the systems, for the training, for the vehicles, where is that money going?
That is a question that I continue to ask, and I ask the question again today because even with the Ministry of Social Development, during the COVID, they got an allocation to deal with persons who are out of a job, which is called the job funding or the job grant to help persons who are not working during the COVID or whatever. I was one of the persons, I also applied for it as well. They sent us a response with a text message, which I still have, telling us that we received the application is being processed. Since 2021, we're waiting. They come back again during the budget again. They say they want more money to give out the job applications. And I raised the question, over 60,000 persons are still waiting. When are they getting the money? They say that they want money again. In 2022 to 23, they come back again just before they open up the place, and the Ministry of Social Development got a large allocation, I think it's over 13 million or more, to get money to give out the job availability grants or the COVID grants, the COVID job grants. And to date, I can tell you over 60,000 people are still waiting for these grants. So you get 3 allocations for these grants within that COVID space and coming out of COVID. But yet over 60,000 persons still are waiting for the COVID grants in 2025. When you ask the minister or direct a question to them, they don't answer. So there's no level of accountability, not even in Parliament. When they come to Parliament, every time I raise a question against the Minister of Social Development, Ms. Donna Cox, to ask about the grants or about any issue in the department, then she comes up with a cock and bull story in the Parliament to tell you, oh, we have found somebody in the ministry who has with corruption or who has been laundering checks as a distraction to the real questions. So to answer that question, unless you have new government and somebody who literally wants to change and end corruption, we will not know about the finances that are in there, where they have done with the money, what they have done with the money, nothing at all. So I'm asking again, the allocations for those 3 years for the ministry and for other ministries. Where is the money for the vehicles? Where is the money for the cameras? Where's the money for the street cameras, the body cameras? Because every year you're saying you come with ankle bracelet, you want money for this, you want money for body cameras, money for cameras on the road. But yet, if you come from Charlotte, from Piaco to Port of Spain, the camera not there. In front of a police station, get shoot up, the camera not working. The police and them not putting on the camera not working. So where is the money going? And that is a question the citizen of Trinidad and Tobago now has to ask the government, not only by this doing burning tires or doing street process, but by their fingers on election day. But the citizens are also the ones to blame for this country's failure because they continue to put the government and put their red party, the yellow party, only by party politics in there. Then after they're in there, they forget about them for 5 years and they continue to complain, and then the same citizens go back and vote them back in. So to answer that level of accountability, unless we have a new government and somebody as strong as myself to clear this corruption and to fight them, we wouldn't see anything. We wouldn't know where that money goes to, but it goes into the pocket of their finances.
Do you think that the chief secretary knows how to help in this arena, crime, etc.?
I believe the chief secretary is clueless. Farley Augustine is like clueless on everything. Whoever is advising him is better they just throw themselves in the dustbin because at the end of the day, based on the state of the economy in Tobago, they are not. The chief secretary and the Tobago House of Assembly in the legislature, the minority leader is asking them questions and money is being spent. You are coming to a debate to tell the public or to let the public know how you spend $9.3 million for Carnival, you spend $9.3 million or $10 million for a road. And the minority leader is asking you, can you tell us who were the contractors? You will stand up as an assemblyman. We do not have that information. How much money was spent and how was the $9.3 million? You stand up again, we do not have that information. And then the presiding officer, or through the presiding officer, you will say, we will provide that information in writing, which we never get. because the minority leader, Mr. Trevor Morris, has mentioned requesting information. Now, I've seen it, I've watched the parliament. When you ask them, their arrogance is like, we don't have the information. So what is the purpose of coming to the debate in the first place? Because you had pre-knowledge of what this sitting was about. This sitting was question and answers. You also have the question and answers available to you. So why is it that you cannot answer the question and give the public a description as to where is the money allocated and where was the money spent? So to me, the chief secretary, he's trying, but it's a failure. He doesn't know about crime. He doesn't know how to solve the crime. They try to rent boats to do a program. It doesn't make sense. He said that he's doing this. He didn't do it. And then when effectively there was this corruption or this allegation of him using the state funds to some voice note that they had some voice note saga, and through the grapevine, it is alleged that because the police officer raided his home and homes of other officials, they themselves pulled back some of the resources from the police service as well. So, as I said, this is a petty society and a petty government that we have here in Tobago, that anytime you come and oppose them, they're going to shut you down, they're going to blacklist you, you don't get anything from them at all, period. So for me, effectively, the Chief Secretary has failed in the protection of the security and safety of our citizens, and that has to do with also the lack of partnership with the Minister of National Security, seeing that he's an opposed government, and then you can't be rude when your hands in the lion mouth, because the government and central government are the ones who effectively have to give you money. But if you keep disrespecting the Prime Minister, disrespecting central government, how you expect to get the money and get things done?
So, who in Parliament do you look up to?
In Parliament right now, the only person I look up to respectfully is Penelope Beckles. As I said, I'm Dr. Christopher Rowley. I would have used my 4 years to learn about his movements, learn his tactics, learn the way how he treats with international partnerships and how he negotiates and stuff. But effectively, Penelope Beckles is the one who I look up to right now because she's an inspiration. She has been an inspiration to me at the United Nations. Her work, her humbleness, and her uniqueness is what I'm using right now to actually filter myself in this political arena.
In short form, with what you feel you need to do, there are retaliatory measures. How do you think or deal with that?
Well, for me, I go by the grace of God. And there are things that are put in the public space, and anybody with anybody, there you have to look at your safety. So sometimes I choose my words carefully. I limit myself to go into the public, and then again, I will use my own source of protection, which I have in the background, which I'll protect myself to the best of my abilities. But otherwise, retaliation, you will see some people use social media to come at me or to say crazy things or to send crazy messages. But to talk about protection from the police service, I wouldn't even try it because they wouldn't even be able to protect me as much as possible. So,
last question, if I may. How do you plan to maintain transparency and accountability should you rise to the level that you're aspiring?
In short, it has to do with me, my humanity to others, and what I want to effectively change in my leadership role. So if elected into parliament at any point and holding the prime minister position or chief secretary position, I just have to do things that all the other persons did in their leadership form not to do, and even to do better and to do great, because what we would have lacked is humanity and the level of relationship with the ground, which is the people and the society and the people who elected me. So I need to maintain that as much as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So in closing, I want to thank the International Media House that is here presently, that has been showing their interest and has been in the space for long. And I want to thank you so much. Those who are on the live, I want to thank you so much for your services. I want to thank you very much for being here. I know we're supposed to take questions. I will stay and I will take some questions from you. So in the meantime, I want to thank the Media House here from traveling all the way from the US. Thank you for coming to Trinidad and Tobago. We love you, we welcome you, and we want you to come back. We must thank our camera guy for being so amazing through this whole journey. And I also want to thank our host, and the host who is actually here, who has also given me the opportunity to be in the space, Miss Ostilla. Ozzy. Yes, Miss Ozzy, yes. Sorry, family. Oh, God, don't hit me too hard. I make a mistake. Sorry. It's Miss Ozzy. Yes, Miss Ozzy. I'm corrected. I stand corrected. I apologize. So, thank you very much again. This is the end of the media conference, and I do look forward. One thing before I go, I must say that Unity of the People will be contesting the general elections this year and the Tobago House of Assembly elections. We are searching for candidates, and we will put out the information of the candidates we're looking for. And if you want to represent your constituency, please feel free to join Unity of the People TT on Facebook or on Instagram or on TikTok, or you can join us on Facebook at Political Leader N. Phillips, both on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook as well. So thank you. Have a wonderful evening and God bless. And I'm back in the public space. Let's deal.